Hello and welcome to Oddspedia Bundesliga Matchday 31. This could be the weekend where we see Harry Kane enjoying, celebrating, lifting a trophy. Ronan Murphy, hello.
Hello, yeah, it's definitely what the bookies are thinking at the moment. Bayern Munich are 1.01 to win the Bundesliga. So if you have €1 million to spare, now might be the chance to put it on and get €10,000. I'm not sure the interest rates are that good. The bank might offer you better interest rates than Bayern Munich win a trophy. But 8 points clear, 12 points remaining, and a 29 goal difference. So if Bayern Munich win this weekend, Leverkusen slip up, then Bayern Munich will be champions. And like you said, Harry Kane will be a champion.
Exactly. Well, Leverkusen to win is 101, for instance, if you want to take your chances. Well, guys, let's analyze what we have in this weekend in the Bundesliga. Only 4 games to go in Germany, and it's especially interesting, the fight for the 4th spot. So let's enjoy the video, of course. Let's go on with the show. We start on Friday with Stuttgart Heidenheim. Heidenheim only 2 points more than Bochum, and next week they are facing Bochum. Actually, 3 consecutive defeats, 2-0 for them, and Stuttgart, they have nothing to play for. It's going to be very difficult for them to qualify for Europe. But we saw plenty of goals. It was a crazy game, 4-4 against Union Berlin, and all the goals in the first half.
Yeah, the first time in Bundesliga history that we've seen 8 first-half goals and then 0 first-half goals to kind of cement that history. Yeah, it was a disappointing. If you had tuned in at half-time thinking that this was going to be more the same, you'd seen the score pop up or you saw it on your social media feed. The second half did not live up to the first half, unfortunately. But yeah, 4 goals for Stuttgart, so showing they're getting plenty of goals. They're still able to score goals, even though, like you said, there's not a lot for them to play for. Heidenheim have loads to play for, so I think this one could be a high-scoring game. It was 3-3 in this match in Stuttgart last season, and as well as in Heidenheim earlier this season. Stuttgart won 3-1, so this match tends to have lots of goals. Both teams to score yes looks a good option here. 67% of Stuttgart's games have had both teams to score yes. 48% of the time for Heidenheim, but I think we're now at the business end of the season. They will have to risk more, and that will leave them a bit more exposed at the back. So both teams to score yes is 168. I'd like to look at that one. Total goals over 2.5 usually happens in matches for both sides. 3/5 of the time in Heidenheim matches, and 72% of the time, so nearly 3/4 of the time in Stuttgart matches. And Heidenheim, they're averaging 2.0 goals conceded per game, with 60 goals conceded in exactly 30 games. So that's a nice round figure for them. And Stuttgart are nearly at that at the other end of the pitch. They've scored 56 goals in their 30 games, so nearly 2 goals for them. So I think this is going to be a match with goals. So I'd like to look at total goals over 3 at 181.
All right, let's look for more interesting games. On Saturday, we have Leverkusen Augsburg. As you said before, this could be the time where Bayern are crowned champions, and Leverkusen are playing amid rumors of the future of Xabi Alonso. Of course, even the CEO of Leverkusen spoke about it recently, and they are not fighting for the title until the end because they drew too much this season. 10 draws from the beginning of the season, and be careful, because I wouldn't be surprised also if Augsburg gets a point here. They are in really good form. They drew with Frankfurt. It's only 1 defeat in the last 14 Bundesliga games, so for sure it won't be easy for Leverkusen.
Yeah, and that 1 defeat was against Bayern Munich, so against everybody else they've been playing quite well. And Bayer Leverkusen, they've kind of, like you said, and like Xabi Alonso said, they've had too many draws this season. And you saw Xabi Alonso, he wasn't really committing to his future at the club. Previously, he would kind of be more definite when he was talking about his future. Fernando Caro, the CEO that you mentioned, he was saying that in a few weeks we'll know if there's going to be a coaching change at our club, is what he said. And he's never said anything like that before. He's usually kind of been he's usually been quite positive that 𝗀𝗲𝗏𝗀𝗏 Alonso was going to stay. He even said we have a gentleman's agreement. If it's a team he's played for comes along, we can sit down. So maybe he's going to be the next 𝗏𝗏 manager. Perhaps he played there on loan, I think, one season, but could return to the Segunda division. But yeah, Real Madrid seems to be the most likely next fit, with Carlo Ancelotti getting linked with Brazil and even the Saudi Arabian national team job in the past week. And I think Leverkusen that's where they are at the moment. A lot of this next few weeks will be talking about the future of the coach, futures of the players. Granit Xhaka has been linked with a move away. He's also been linked with the Saudi Pro League. The 𝗀𝗏𝗏𝗀 confirmed as well this week that he will definitely be leaving this summer. Barcelona seems to be his preferred destination because it won't cost them any money. So that will be a typical Barcelona signing when they have no money. But yeah, this is a team that I think has other things on their mind. So it actually could play very well into Bayern Munich's hands this weekend, because maybe they'll slip up again, because Leverkusen, they've had 2 draws in a row after beating Heidenheim just by 1 goal. The only team they've beaten by 2 or more goals in their last 9 games is Bochum. The most common result here is 2-1, which was the result last May. And the last 5 meetings, Leverkusen have won 2 of them by 1 goal, lost 2 of them by 1 goal, and they won 2-0 earlier this season. But they tend to have close games with Augsburg, so that's why I really like the look of Augsburg Asian handicap plus 1.5 at 186.
Great, indeed. If Augsburg lose by 1 goal, even you win your bet, so it's a very good idea. I wouldn't discard also to see a draw, indeed, here. And perhaps the game of the party, the title is Bayern Munich Mainz, with Mainz still fighting for Europe, but they are winless in the last 5. On the other hand, we saw Bayern Munich beating easily Heidenheim after the KO in the Champions League in San Siro. I guess this one is, or the last 2 games at the Allianz, is about the farewell of Müller, and also about thinking about the future for Bayern Munich if the Bundesliga title is enough for them, if this is a good season for company and for Bayern Munich.
Yeah, we've been talking about that since the start of the season. What would make a good season for Bayern Munich, and what would be a successful season for Vincent Kompany? And we still don't know, I don't think. Yeah, they've won. They're going to win the league, and they're going to win the league with a couple of games to spare. But it's not the domination that we've seen in previous years. Leverkusen themselves kind of shot themselves in the foot at times during the season, kind of putting results kind of like last week or the last couple of weeks. And yeah, Bayern Munich, they haven't really steamrolled opposition like we've seen before, but everyone around the club kind of praises Vincent Kompany. They seem to like the way he keeps things out of the media. He's kind of pally with the players. He seems to be friendly with those on the pitch and those off the pitch. So he's doing everything right, apart from winning the Champions League, I suppose. But yeah, I think they will give him another season and see what happens. But I don't think there will be a coaching change at Bayern Munich this summer. But there could be staff changes. There could be personnel changes on the pitch, because they're always in the look for more creativity on the wings, and that's something that we're lacking at times in the Champions League, and maybe why they were knocked out. So you could see 𝐿𝐭𝐴𝐵𝐻 kind of leave and someone else come in to take his place. So there will be a busy summer in Munich, but I'm not sure it will be around the coach. For now, they have to focus on winning the league, and scoring goals against Mainz is something they've done in the past. Earlier this season, Mainz won 2-1 in the league, but it was 3-1 and 8-1 last season, 4-0 in the cup as well this season for Bayern Munich. So Mainz are, like you said, there are 5 games without a win. They've conceded 2 or more goals in 4 of those 5 games. Bayern Munich tend to score lots of goals. They've won 4 of 6 Bundesliga games since they lost to Bochum in March. They are averaging 2.9 goals in the Bundesliga per game. Total Bayern Munich goals here over 2.5. It's nice at 175. But Harry Kane, he does need that trophy, like you said at the start of the show. He likes playing against Mainz. His record against Mainz in the Bundesliga was 1 goal, 3 goals, and then he was injured earlier this season, so maybe that's why they lost in that game. So Harry Kane to score at any time, 163 here, so he could be crowning his first trophy in style.
Indeed, well, the title is over, but the title race, I mean, but also we have to take a look at Europe and to the relegation, and Kiel Gladbach is important for both ends, although it's going to be very difficult for Kiel to stay in the Bundesliga. At least they grab a draw against Leipzig that no one thought about it, and they are 3 points away from Heidenheim. Gladbach is still fighting for Europe, but they lost the last two games.
Yeah, Gladbach are just 3 points behind sixth, so they're still within a chance of Europe. Obviously, Stuttgart are behind them in the table, so Stuttgart might not finish in a European spot. So that cup spot that we usually see, Leverkusen last season, and they handed that cup spot to someone in the league. We mightn't see it go back to the league. We might see Stuttgart or Arminia Bielefeld obviously win the cup, and then there's just 6 places from the league left for Bundesliga teams. So it could be hard for Gladbach to get into Europe, despite being kind of in touching distance at the moment. But I think it's going to be a tough few weeks, and they'll be looking at other matches a lot more maybe than their own matches in the next few weeks. Kiel, on the other hand, they don't have much chance of staying in the Bundesliga. Like I said, they're only 3 points behind the relegation playoff, and they've scored 9 more goals than Heidenheim and 12 more than Bochum, but they are conceding so many goals. They've conceded 11 and 10 more goals, 11 and 9, I think, more than the teams around them in the relegation battle. There's 6 games without a win. There's 6 games at home without a win. They're just in a bad run of form at the moment. Gladbach are back-to-back defeats, so they're kind of letting Europe slip, but they put in decent enough performances in those matches. Lost 2-1 to Freiburg, 3-2 to Borussia Dortmund. They can kind of embarrass themselves in any of them matches. Gladbach, their last 6 away games, they've been pretty good. 4 wins, a draw, and then a loss. And the only one of those that they didn't score 2 or more goals in was the draw against St. Pauli. So I think they can score goals against Kiel, because Kiel ship a lot of goals, and I think they can actually win this one. That's 2-27.
Let's go to the next one, Hoffenheim Dortmund. Here, Hoffenheim absolutely saved despite the poor season. So we have to look at Dortmund to win is 1.8. Now they are 4 points away from the Champions League spots, also fighting for the Europa League, although, of course, the target is this 4th spot. And we saw them beating Gladbach after the KO in the Champions League. And we saw also 𝗲𝗏𝗏 scoring again for 𝗲𝗏𝗏, 16 goals in the Bundesliga. And he's still the top scorer of the Champions League, by the way.
Yeah, maybe he'll finish as the top scorer of the Champions League. Maybe Dortmund will finish on top in Europe again this season in one category at least. But yeah, that match against Gladbach that I mentioned in the last game, it was a great performance from Borussia Dortmund. They held out very well. They kind of showed their personality a bit more than they have been in recent weeks. And sporting director Sebastian Kehl came out and said that there was other phases of the season where they would have ended up in a draw in that match. So I think they're kind of improving bit by bit. 𝗍𝐿𝐴 has won the trust of a lot of the players, and you are even seeing kind of rumours coming out in German media that 𝗍𝐿𝐴 will continue as Borussia Dortmund manager next season. So that'll be interesting to see how that one plays out. If he can obviously finish this season well and maybe get to the Champions League, seems unlikely, but if he finishes the season well, there is kind of scope for him to stay, and there will be a reason for him to stay, because they are scoring more goals now. They're looking a bit better in defence, so they're kind of doing the things that you want Dortmund to do. They're unbeaten in their last 4 Bundesliga games. They've scored 3 goals in their last 2 Bundesliga games. Hoffenheim, when they play Dortmund, when they host Dortmund in Sinsheim, they usually lose. They've lost their last 4 home games to Dortmund. Dortmund scored 3 times in 3 of those 4 wins. So total goals over 3.25 here. It's 2. Like you said, Dortmund to win looks like a pretty good option as well. But you mentioned leading into this match, 𝗲𝗏𝗏 is the top goal scorer in the Champions League. He's scoring a lot of goals in the Bundesliga. He scored a lot of goals this year. He's got 17 goals in 2025. That's the 3rd most of any player from the big 5 leagues, behind Dembele and Mbappe. So yeah, he's scoring a lot of goals in 2025, and long may it continue. Serhou Guirassy, anytime goal scorer, 2.18 is what I like in this.
Indeed. Well, next game is Wolfsburg-Freiburg, and here we have amazing odds to back Freiburg, a team that have still hopes to qualify for Europe, and they beat Hoffenheim and Gladbach in the last two games, and they are the underdog against Wolfsburg. The season is over for them, and they are coming from 4 consecutive defeats and that draw against Mainz. Cannot understand the odds, Ronan.
No, I definitely don't. And we mentioned last week on the show, I think maybe the week before, Ralph Hasenhüttl is under pressure. There are all these different names being linked to replace him. They haven't changed coach yet because there's no reason, because there's nothing to play for whatsoever for Wolfsburg. But there's so much to play for Freiburg. Back-to-back wins over Gladbach and Hoffenheim in the last 2 weeks. That puts them in 5th in the table, and only a point behind 4th, and 3rd and 4th are playing each other this weekend, so that does help them. They've never played in the Champions League before. It wouldn't be their best Bundesliga season to finish in the top 4, because they've finished 3rd back in the 1990s, 1994, 95. But back then, the Champions League was only a baby competition, and you had to actually be a champion to get into it. So this will be the first time for them to get into the Champions League if they finish in the top 4. They've been in the Europa League a lot recently. Well, they've been in the Europa League a couple of times recently. They reached the last 16 in 2023 and 2024. So they are used to Europe, but this finishing top 4 would be the best year in their history, I would imagine, to get into the Champions League, because they've never kind of reached these heights before. But this is a match that they definitely could. They could win. The most common result in between these two sides is actually Freiburg winning 1-0. That was the result last season in this exact match in Wolfsburg. So Freiburg win at 3 looks really good. But if you want to play it a bit safer, Freiburg double chance at 165 could be worth a bet too.
Indeed, great odds to back Freiburg in this game. And the late kickoff on Saturday is Frankfurt-Leipzig. Great game, 3rd against the 4th, with the Champions League spots on stake. And we saw Leipzig once again this season disappointing us against Kiel. They were coming from wins against Wolfsburg and Hoffenheim, but 1-1 at home with Kiel and Frankfurt. They weren't able to win after the KO in the Europa League against Tottenham. They are 4 points away from Freiburg, so also they cannot relax, although a win for the home team will be almost definitive to go to the Champions League next season.
Yeah, really would help if they could bet the team in 4th. So this is a match that it's kind of hard to pick one specific winner from them. So I think you have to kind of look elsewhere to find something that might give you more value and might pay out, obviously, because the Leipzig slipped up last week. They went 1-0 down to Kiel just before half time, and Zolo, the way he talked after the match, he was so disappointed with how they performed in the first half. And from the sounds of things, he went in and he read them the riot act at half time, and they came out and they played much better in the second half. So yeah, on the other hand, Eintracht Frankfurt have Kevin Trapp back in goal. He was able to keep a clean sheet against Augsburg, and that was a club record, 59th clean sheet in the Bundesliga for him and for Frankfurt. Obviously, they have 𝐿 Santos is sidelined for 6 to 7 months now. He's been ruled out, and he was kind of one of the emerging goalkeepers in the Bundesliga, one of the top kind of emerging young players in any position in the Bundesliga, and it's disappointing to see him out. But when they have someone kind of experienced like Kevin Trapp, I don't think they're going to suffer too much in between the sticks. But I think Leipzig suffered because Xavi Simons was absent again. He was suspended, but he should be back for this match. Benjamin Sesko is suspended for this match, but I think Xavi Simons is a much more kind of creative player for Leipzig, and much more important, especially with 4 matches left and 4 matches to put himself in the shop window for some of Europe's biggest clubs to come in to make a bid for him this summer. Peter 𝗏 could be out for Leipzig for them in goal. Martin van der Voort had to come on for him after he suffered a knock in the match last week. So it'd be interesting to see whether he'll be fit or be cleared in time to play in this match. But I think that kind of this match is a match where both teams have to win, both teams have to score matches, both teams have to score goals in this match. Leipzig, they want to seal a Champions League spot because that's what they need to be the Leipzig, to continue the Leipzig model, to be able to encourage these young players to come to Leipzig. They need to be playing in the Champions League because that's what what their entire kind of business is built on is developing these young players, getting them experience in the Bundesliga and the Champions League. And if they're not in the Champions League, they can't kind of sign the same sort of players that they would any other summers. And they really need to get in the Champions League. A draw here is 4.05. I think that could be a good option, but I'm not going to say definitely bet on the draw or back each individual team, because these teams are hard to separate in the past as well. The last 17 meetings, 5 wins each, 7 draws. So this one is one where you kind of have to look at other markets. Both teams to score, yes, doesn't really pay wonderfully at 147. So I had a look at when these teams score for goals. Frankfurt are averaging 1.93 goals per game, exactly one in the first half, 0.93 in the second half. And Leipzig are averaging 1.6 goals per game, 0.9 in the first half. So both teams tend to score most of the goals in the first half. So if we're going for both teams to score, we're expecting this match to have goals because both teams need to win it. Both teams to score in the first half is 350.
Great game, this one, Frankfurt, Leipzig for a Saturday evening. And then for Sunday we have 2 games, Bochum, Union Berlin. Union Berlin absolutely safe, but getting points lately. They are in good form, unbeaten in the last 6. And for instance, they drew with Stuttgart or Leverkusen recently. But much more important, this game for Bochum, they must win to leave the bottom 2. They are only 2 points away from Heidenheim, although they've lost the last 5 games.
Yeah, they are not in a good run at the moment. And if you look at the meetings between these teams, Bochum have won 4 of the last 5 meetings. The other was a draw. But the previous 5 meetings, so for the last 10 games, Union won 4 of those. So they're split evenly, 4-2 and 4. Yeah, these are teams that are hard to separate usually, but Bochum have been terrible for large parts of the season. Union Berlin have been much improved since they changed coach. They're mathematically safe, like you said. Scored 4 times last weekend. They are capable of scoring. They're capable of getting good results against most teams. Bochum, 5 Bundesliga defeats in a row. Doesn't look good for them at the moment. They're making things a lot harder for themselves. And Union Berlin, I know they're safe and I know they celebrated their 200th game in the Bundesliga last weekend, but I think they still have a great chance here because they've had a great chance against good teams. You mentioned Leverkusen and Stuttgart, but they've beaten Bayern Munich. They've drawn against Bayern Munich, they've drawn against Leverkusen, and they've beaten Frankfurt. So against the top 3 teams in the Bundesliga recently, they've got points off them all. So why couldn't they get points off one of the worst teams in the Bundesliga? So Union Berlin, double chance. Looks pretty good here, 168.
And the last game, Werder Bremen, St. Pauli. St. Pauli safe. We will see them another season in the Bundesliga, and much more important for Werder Bremen, challenging for Europe. They are in great form, 4 consecutive wins, and they are only 2 points away from Mainz.
Yes, St. Pauli aren't totally mathematically safe. They're pretty close, but they're 8 points clear of the relegation and 10 points clear of 8 clear playoff and 10 points clear of relegation. So if they lost all their matches in Bochum, the likes of Bochum won every match, but I don't think it's going to happen. So yeah, it's more or less another season in the Bundesliga. A great performance last weekend, a great kind of point to pick up. St. Pauli, 3 games without a defeat now. Draws with Gladbach and Leverkusen and win over Kiel. So yeah, pretty good kind of run they're on at the moment. Bremen have had 4 wins in a row, 2 home, 2 away. They're closing on in Europe themselves. They're another 8 with 45 points, but that's the same as Dortmund, and we've spoken about Dortmund kind of looking for a European spot. So why not Bremen? If Dortmund are able to do it, why not Bremen? So yeah, it's possible, especially the run that they're on at the moment. They beat St. Pauli 2-0 earlier this season. This is a match where there could be plenty of goals because St. Pauli, like I said, they need to kind of secure safety. I know if they lost every game, they probably would still be safe, but they need to kind of get goals on the board, pick up points here and there. So total goals over 2.5 might be one worth looking at here at 191. And Pauli, I mentioned first half goals in the last game. Both teams scored in the first half in the last game, but this match is the one where both teams tend to score in the second half. St. Pauli score most of their goals in the second half. They concede most of the goals in the second half. Bremen, they also score most of their goals in the second half and concede more in the second half at home than they do in away matches. So with that in mind, total second half goals over 1.5 is 2.04.
Okay, you have the data, you have the stats. Now you can bet, or you can also post your tips in Oddspedia and participate in our tipster competitions going on. You can win some cash prizes and also Remember, you can create your own tipster competition thanks to rivals, for instance, about the Bundesliga. Why not? Ronan, let's go for your safe bet.
My safe bet is Hoffenheim Dortmund over 2.25 goals at 133.
And the ACCA?
My ACCA is Union Berlin double chance, Hoffenheim Dortmund over 2.5 goals, Frankfurt Leipzig over 2.5 goals for a total of 375.
Great, Ronan. Thanks everyone for watching. See you next week. Bye.
Bye.